This is one of your main problems.
We need a fire escape over there, or in the manual procedures for the Sheriff's Department. The procedure, if there is a fire within that county jail, is to go down here to Kevin's wrecker and get them to come and jerk a wall out of it.
These workers are putting together flying banners, the same ones OU football fans see hovering about the stadium on game day. Lately, the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, has decided to keep a close eye on the ground-to-air operation of these flying advertisements. Today, this pilot was questioned extensively about maintenance and licensing procedures.
You got a copy of the certificate and
the waiver, you mean? Yes, right here, in the bar baggage thing.
Flying banners around Owen Stadium is a more complicated procedure than many people realize.
Last time I flew, it was worked fairly well, except there was a helicopter kind of buzzing in and out on us, which made it a little different.
a couple weeks ago.
It's tricky business hooking up the banners to the plane, but organizers say it's relatively safe.
The problem lies in the people in the stands not really being able to judge distances from aircraft in the air. And consequently, you have people with questions, and the FAA is trying to satisfy those questions.
But you're confident in your business?
Well, I'm very confident. There's a track record of they've been towing banners probably since 1925. And they've only improved on the equipment and the airplanes, and pilots are certified, and the aircraft are certified, and everyone goes through inspections and checks at all phases, and there's just no problem with it.
As you can see, the planes do fly over highly populated areas, and there can be as many as 4 planes at once directly over the stadium. But the FAA plans to continue their vigil over the operation until they are satisfied it's safe. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 in Norman.
Edmond police, fire, and civil defense units were on the scene immediately. They had been alerted of the crash by 2 witnesses who watched the plane fall in a field near their home. It's possible the small aircraft had intended to land in the field. The area is an authorized airstrip. For whatever reason, the plane was flying low over the area and hit this utility pole, bringing the power lines and the plane tumbling to the ground. When it became apparent the aircraft was not going to burst into flames, the 2 young witnesses rushed over to remove the pilot and the passenger.
And this was a male pilot and a female passenger. The female passenger was transported via Metaflight helicopter to Mercy Hospital, and the pilot was transported by AmCare to Mercy Hospital. The extent of injuries unknown.
Mercy Health Center now reports the 2 to be in fair condition. The names are not being released until their families have been notified. Once the injured people were removed from the crash site, the emergency crews were instructed to guard the area and wait for the arrival of FAA investigators. It'll be their job to find out what the plane was doing and why it went down. Those answers won't be known for hours. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 in Edmond.
and shoot the deputy.
A Bethany resident came home today to find two convicted killers in his house. Escapees Ronald Kuntz and Correll Draper exchanged shots with the man and then fled in a brown over white pickup truck. Minutes later, Bethany police apprehended the two at a nearby park. Both men were heavily armed. Kuntz and Draper had 2 shotguns and a .30-30 rifle. Both surrendered to police without incident. The men escaped from the Oklahoma State Penitentiary on Saturday by hiding in laundry bags. They were carried out by a McAlester laundry service. The convicts then stole a truck and several weapons. Oklahoma City police confirmed the two will have a short stay at the city jail. They will be charged with assault with a deadly weapon and then shipped back to the state prison. Kurt Autry, Action 4.
It takes many, many years to develop a improved variety, say of wheat or any crop. It takes years of research to just develop one variety.
There's been no motive established at this time. I can say that robbery has been ruled out. We're still pending the medical examiner's report to determine if there was any sexual foul play or connected with this crime.
The thought of being mind controlled was ridiculous enough, let alone to think that I was doing it to someone else. But see, what we're taught is the techniques that work. And so we have these classes on witnessing and under shepherding, how to get someone in. We have these classes on the renewed mind, how to renew your mind effectively, boy, so you could just really program it. And we'd have all these classes, and we're taught what works.
You renew your mind. You see that it's transformed. I can't do it for you. You can't do it for me. But I can teach you. And I'll use every ability I have to motivate you to believe it. Everything I own, I'll do it to try to motivate you to believe it. Just like football coaches did, trying to motivate me to perform right. Just like any real teacher and motivator, any salesman will do. I'll use anything I can within the realm of motivation, but I'll never manipulate, because I just don't, because the Bible teaches you to motivate, not manipulate.
Larger ship was the, and you remember what we said ship over there was called. So you've got to know what you've been hearing, don't you? Dickens family on their own way. So they had left England and gone.
I think that we have good quality teachers, and I think that we're able to place good quality teachers. We just don't know how long they stay in the teaching profession. Many of them leave after a short period of time.
Gene Pope has been farming wheat for years. His father gave him his first field, as his father's father did. Someday he'd like to hand his land over to his boys, but he's afraid of what the future holds for farmers. This year, Gene will be lucky to break even, but he's one of the smart ones. He saw the hard times coming and started a second business. That sideline has become the lifeline for his family.
We couldn't afford to live on what we make off the farm. We're just not in a way. I have spent more this year on fertilizer and things than I did last year, but we sold our wheat just yesterday, in fact, and the way it looks right now, there'll not be any profit at all as we put it all back into fertilizer and soil and fuel and getting this crop in. So unless next year is a real good crop, more than this year's was, why we won't make a profit even next year.
Unfortunately, the word from agricultural experts is that things will get worse for Oklahoma's farmers before they get better. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
There's a special kind of care on the 9th floor at St. Anthony Hospital. This nurse treats elderly patients too ill to go home, but not sick enough to be in a regular hospital bed. It's the city's only hospital-based skilled nursing facility. The 3-year-old unit has 24 beds and a waiting list, but it's shutting down January 3rd. Reductions in the national health care budget will cut Medicare reimbursements from $98 to $54 a day. The cuts would create financial disaster for St. Anthony Hospital.
The regulation change will amount to an additional deficit of $500,000 for the current year. Getting much more difficult for being reimbursed for patient care. The quality of care that's available through Medicare is being reduced by the budget cuts.
The unit has never been a moneymaker. It loses $100,000 annually. But Stevens says the projected $500,000 deficit was prohibitive. He says when the unit closes January 3rd, a needed phase of health care for the elderly will cease. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at St. Anthony Hospital.
The uniqueness is really the simplicity of it. And why we haven't seen it before, I don't know, but we read some advertisement about it where they were using it in the oil derricks and oil that are off the coast in the water, where they use it for rescue nets for years. And so we want to try it here on land, and we're very pleased.
It was real smooth. It never did spin. Have no problems with it at all. We were, everywhere we went, we had control over it.
The Oklahoma City Fire Department is constantly checking its equipment. The department has a big investment in its pumping engines. This one was bought in 1979 for $80,000. New ones cost about $120,000. But now Oklahoma City has joined with fire departments in Dallas, Fort Worth, Kansas City, Shreveport, and New Orleans in a consumer cartel. They've agreed to standardize specifications for the engines so they can buy together. It's hoped the price can be held down by as much as $15,000 an engine through volume purchases.
Someone's going to get an order for 20 fire engines, and that's going to be a help to them. So everybody wins. City wins, the manufacturers win, and ultimately the taxpayers win as well, because they're getting something for a lot less than they have been in the past.
Johnson said Oklahoma City will buy 2 of the first 20 engines ordered by the cartel. Dallas has the biggest need. They want 11.
It's hoped the cartel can next agree on specifications for aerial ladders. This piece of equipment costs $250,000, so a 15% discount would mean a savings of more than $37,000. Bill Ross, Action 4 at the Central Fire Station.
The Seminole headquarters near Wewoka looks more like a fort these days than an office complex. Security guards man the front gate 24 hours a day, locking up each day at 5. Just last week, the complex was riddled with bullets. Seminole officials say the shots came from the Bureau of Indian Affairs building across the street. The Seminole are worried about more attacks.
We're concerned that, they will use violence as a means to, gain access to the building and control of the tribal property. This was really sobering when they opened fire on us last week, and since then we've taken a lot of precaution with women and children here.
The atmosphere inside the complex is a calm one, though, for the most part. The Seminole keep a constant watch vigil, and many have been living inside the complex as a protest against the BIA for what the Indians call interfering in tribal affairs by forcing an impeachment vote against the current chief and allegedly suspending funds for many programs.
I'm just in this for my kids, that's all. For one thing, so they can get a higher education. They're the ones that are getting hurt in all this. It's the children and the old people.
Action 4 was unable to contact officials with the Bureau of Indian Affairs this evening, but we will talk with them sometime tomorrow and continue following the story. Dan Slocum, Action 4 in Wewoka.
It may take up to a week to repair the second biggest water main in Oklahoma City. No one knows why the 60-inch main busted. This is not a new problem to city officials. The toughest part is just reaching the main buried 20 feet under the ground. When the main busted, there was a complete loss of water pressure for thousands of residents, and nearby General Motors plant also lost pressure. Still, the biggest concern is what to do if there's a big fire with such an important main being repaired. The fire department says it has ways of handling situations like this.
From a fire protection point of view, it means that we may have to send additional companies into the area. We may have to send tank pumpers that carry a greater amount of water into the area. And it may mean that we don't have much problem at all. We may just have to raise the pressure a little bit more, which we do normally anyway, from the pressure that is in the main at the time.
This break was so bad that private contractors have been called in to replace the damaged section. As for the cost, it has not been determined yet. Officials say they can't know ahead of time when a fire may break out, but it sure helps to know when there's trouble with the main before a fire forces them to find out the hard way. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Southeast Oklahoma City.
exculpatory his blood. The DA had not divulged to him. After argument, all of the motion.
As I've stated all along, I feel that there is enough error in the record that one of these days Harmon will be given a new trial.
And what will the outcome of that trial be, in your opinion?
In my opinion, he should have been found not guilty the first time. The evidence is not there. I feel most of the people who watched the trial and sat through it agree that Harmon should have been found not guilty. I think the juries who heard the risk case confirmed that probably the state of Oklahoma did not have ample evidence to find Harmon guilty.
For a few hours, the clock was turned back to 1942, a time when America's allies and enemies were easily recognized, a time when America's young men marched off to war. Tommy Thomas became a fighter ace 40 years ago, helping the Allies beat the Axis powers in North Africa and southern Italy. Thomas flew his twin-engine business plane back to those memory-filled places this Veterans Day. He wanted to celebrate the 40 years of peaceful relations between the U.S. and those countries across the Atlantic. For Thomas and his crew, it was a sentimental journey, especially when he visited the final resting place of his fallen comrades.
Before we left, we went by the cemetery, which is a beautiful, beautiful place, and sort of relived. It all came back to us when we began to see the graves of members of our group. It's a very strange feeling, you know, very emotional feeling. And after that, we were able to go to the chapel, and my friend Rodriguez was with me. We were together during all that time. And I guess, you know, if it was time to shed a tear, that's where we did it.
This sentimental journey is over. Memories will soon be filed away. But Colonel Thomas is already planning his next trip. He wants to take his wife to Italy next summer to make some new memories. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at Wiley Post Airport.
Well, Bill, you all set to go home? Yes, sir. Ready to go.
To say it's been a traumatic year for Bill Miller is an understatement. He survived a car explosion, only to spend 6 months in a hospital in New Mexico, a long way from his family. 2.5 months ago, he was transported to an Oklahoma City hospital. It's been his home until today. After 22 operations and several close calls with death, Bill's going to go to his real home in Blackwell, Oklahoma. And he's ready to go.
I think he's concerned that you may not give him a ride home and he's practicing his hitchhiking maneuver.
Yeah, I got that thumb out there too, ready for that hitchhiking.
Bill will only be home for 3 days, but that's 3 more than his family ever expected.
Because when we brought him back here, we didn't think that Bill would ever be able to come back home. And 2 weeks ago, we about lost him. And he just keeps kicking right on back.
This Thanksgiving, when you sit down at the table, what will it be that you give thanks for?
For Bill to be with us at this time, because we just didn't think he would. We thought we would be this Thanksgiving without him.
Bill's strength through these hard times has been an inspiration to his family and fellow patients. This man has shown an incredible will to live.
You don't want to never look back on nothing. Always look forward.
Sherry Sellers, Action 4. Heavy traffic has become an accepted part of the holiday season. We all know that Thanksgiving is just the beginning of a month-long fight to get from store to store and home to home. Wherever there's congestion, there's bound to be trouble, and for that reason, these people will get no time off. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol will be on the roads in full force to make sure the holiday traffic doesn't get out of hand. They'll be looking for the speeders, the reckless drivers, and especially those under the influence of alcohol.
The biggest hazard is that he's a threat to your life and your security and that of your family. In Oklahoma, over 50% of the traffic deaths are the direct result of the drinking driver. So this is one reason, of course, why we would be placing a great deal of emphasis on the drinking driver.
I just came this way. I need 240 east.
The Oklahoma Highway Patrol will also be there to lend a helping hand. But if you're breaking the law and endangering the lives of others, the troopers will be more than happy to hand you a ticket. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Christmas season filled the air in downtown Oklahoma City. Bundled up to brave the cold, a few thousand people gathered around the city's 44-foot Christmas tree. The celebration was to usher in the holiday season and welcome a very special guest.
Always symbolizes the spirit of love and giving, and here in our country, in our state, in our city, he's Santa Claus.
Thank you, Mary Lanning. Merry Christmas, everybody.
It was the premiere appearance for Santa Claus and the Lights of Christmas.
3, 2, 1.
The tree lights sparkled in the night, but the brightest glow was on the faces of the children. This is what fantasies and dreams are made of. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in downtown Oklahoma City.
He didn't exactly arrive in his usual fashion, but Santa Claus did make it to the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds today. Santa and his pretty companion came to help kick off the first Dickens Christmas Expo in Oklahoma City. The expo will officially open to the public this weekend at 10 a.m. Proclamations from the mayor and governor were read out loud in honor of the occasion.
Would Prime Minister Starbird and Barrister Mitchell please come forward and, by cutting this red ribbon, officially open the Dickens Christmas Exposition.
Actors and exhibits that bring back Christmases of the 1880s are the main attractions. The expo's organizer says this is being done to bring back a lot of the magic of traditional Christmas. So for those interested in participating in an old-fashioned holiday, the expo is the place to be, and some of the gate proceeds will be donated to charity. It took years to make the expo a reality.
Well, actually, the thought has been in a planning stage for about 5 years, and we actually started construction of Dickens' old Lemon Town here last April, and have worked hard to get it ready by this Christmas. So.
I don't know if it's because Christmas arrived early in Oklahoma City, but it took 25 years, and I finally got what I was wishing for. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the State Fairgrounds.
Take your time.